We're 2 weeks into the transfer portal, and a lot of Nebraska fans are already asking, what's the next step for the Huskers? So in today's video, I'm going to answer exactly that. We're going to go over some targets that Nebraska needs to lock down, some transfers they missed out on, and some big concerns I have for the Big Red going forward that need to be addressed. So really quick, we have a lot to get into. Big transfer portal update. Make sure to hit that like button. And also, over the last 15 days, we have gained 2,000 brand new subscribers, and for good reason. I post daily Husker football content and Nebraska transfer portal updates. They're going to get nowhere else on YouTube. So listen, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan, you're unsubscribed, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. I am so appreciative of all of you guys. It would help me out greatly. But without further ado, let's get into it. Going over this update. What is the next step for Nebraska in the transfer portal? Of course, we know that the transfer portal has been open for about 2 weeks now. And within that time frame, Nebraska's already landed 7 transfers going from top to bottom. Marcos Davila, former 4-star quarterback, Isaiah Hunter, 4-star wide receiver, 2 depth pieces on the defensive line in Gabe Moore and Jalen George, 2 specialists, and then former 5-star Williams Nwaneri on that defensive line. So the first thing I want to preach to people who are freaking out saying Nebraska isn't doing good enough in the transfer portal, this is only stage 1. Stage 1 just completed for the Huskers in the portal. We're going to get into stage 2, but just know the portal's been only open 2 weeks. It, of course, closes next Saturday, but that just means that players can't answer the portal anymore. Once they're in the portal, they can commit whenever they want. So Nebraska's going to continue to receive commitments up until mid to late January in the portal. So we're only ending stage 1. Nebraska's actually leaving for New York City on Monday, which means we're not really going to get too many more transfer visits until the week after next. But we still have a lot of good things going for the Huskers, but there are some concerns that we need to address. Let's get into the first one. The first big concern for me in Nebraska in the transfer portal has been the linebacker room, and really how we haven't went after any notable prospects. Nebraska really doesn't return anybody in that inside backer room. You only bring back Vincent Shavers. You lose guys like John Bullock, Stephon Thompson, Makai Bayer, among a couple others. So you needed to get a couple guys. Now, they tried to get Omar Graham, who was a former Florida State linebacker. He scheduled a visit, and then he decided that he was actually going to return to Florida State. They tried to go after Phoenix Jackson very early on the portal, the first day that it opened, but the price got too high. Matt Rhule said in his press conference literally yesterday, yesterday's price is not today's price, basically kind of joking that our NIL a little bit struggling right now, but Phoenix Jackson, his price went up. Nebraska said, hey, we're not paying that much, and got out of that bidding war pretty quickly. And really, after that, those are the 2 only linebackers that Nebraska even pursued. We haven't lined up a single linebacker visit since then. So that is a huge concern for me. We need to get some linebackers. Again, there's a lot of quality linebackers in the portal, of course. You know, you look at the number 1 guy coming in from Colorado. Deshaun McCollum's a guy that I really like, transferring from Oklahoma. You need to set up some visits here because you return literally nobody in that linebacker room. It's arguably our biggest weakness defensively right now. It's good that they've addressed the defensive line. I like that defensive line. I was never even worried about it. You need to address linebacker. That's the biggest concern. It's not concerning that we haven't got any commitments there yet. It's concerning that we really even haven't targeted anybody in that linebacker room. So definitely got to keep an eye on that in that linebacker room. Also, I'm kind of concerned about the defensive backs at this point. The DB room is a very, very big weakness right now, and it was a weakness last year for the Huskers, and you return almost nobody. You lose Tommy Hill. You lose Deshaun Singleton. You lose Isaac Gifford, among a couple others. You really only bring back Sear Wright and Marquez Buford, who's, okay at best. So you need to really overhaul that defensive back room, and we haven't really brought too many guys on campus. So the linebacker room and the defensive back room are, some things that we absolutely need to address going forward. Talking about some guys that we missed out on. Nebraska, another thing that's kind of concerning about Nebraska in the portal is they have missed out on some of their biggest targets. We missed out on Eric Rivers, and there's, for some reason, a notion around Nebraska circles that Nebraska passed up on this guy. Nebraska did not pass up on Eric Rivers. They wanted him very badly. You talk to anybody in that coaching staff. Eric Rivers was an AP All-American. You do not pass up on All-Americans. So I want to clear that up. They wanted Eric Rivers. We simply got outbid. Georgia Tech has more NIL than us. Okay, that was evident in last year's class. They got a 5-star offensive tackle, and they outbid us for Eric Rivers. Very, very, very simple. Okay, so we wanted Eric Rivers. We got outbid. We got outbid for Isaiah World. That was obvious. That was our number 1 target on that offensive line. But there was some bad news yesterday, too. on that offensive line, people always talk to me and they say, Wilson, it's good we're getting defensive linemen. We need to address the offensive line. I agree. We need to protect Dylan Raiola. We not only went 0 for 1, we went 0 for 3. Yesterday, we lost out on Keegan Trost, Wake Forest offensive tackle transfer to Missouri. And then to add insult to injury, we lost another prospect to Missouri in Dominic Judiance in a span of 2 hours, a guard transfer from Michigan. So we talked about the linebackers. We talked about the defensive backs. Those are the two biggest concerns on offense or on defense. Why haven't we addressed the offensive line? We really haven't brought any transfers on for a visit, and the guys we did bring on a visit have already committed elsewhere. So I'm concerned about that offensive line just a little bit. I mean, you just need depth. You need depth there. We lack a lot of depth, and Nebraska's tried to be aggressive there. We've just missed out on these guys. So I'm not freaking out. There are a lot of Nebraska fans freaking out right now and saying, "Oh, we're screwed. We're not going to have a top 30 class." I'm not there yet. I don't think I'm ever going to be there. I still think we're going to have a fine transfer class. But it is concerning that the few players that we did get to visit really didn't end up signing with Nebraska, especially on the offensive line. So that brings me to, what are the players who are still available that we need to absolutely lock down going forward? Well, Dane Key, of course, is the first one. He's on a visit currently with Nebraska. Of course, I've been very consistent about my take with Dane Key. Nebraska still has a chance here. It's not over. He's not committed to Georgia, but Georgia is the heavy favorite, and they have a couple things going in their favor. Number one, the money factor. Number two, the success factor. And number three, I just found out yesterday, Dane Key's girlfriend plays softball for Georgia. So there's a lot of things not going in our favor. Usually when the girlfriend's at a certain school, that hurts us pretty significantly. So maybe we can get her to transfer and play for Nebraska softball. I don't know. But, the fact that Dane Key's on a visit right now, even after the rumors the last week that Georgia was a heavy favorite, it's still a good sign. My guess is Nebraska is going to do whatever they can to make sure that he signs before he leaves campus. We'll see what happens with Dane Key. That would be a big addition, but we'll see. Again, I'm not betting on anything there, but the fact that he's on campus is still gives us a pretty decent chance. So that's, of course, the first guy. We talked about him. Andrew Marshall, Idaho transfer. Again, still looks good for Nebraska. He ended up visiting Miami yesterday and today, so a little bit concerned there, but I still feel like Nebraska is going to land him. If it's a bidding war, you got to pony up, man. You got to pony up because you need a defensive back, and that's a guy who's really, really productive. This is a guy you need to lock down. Okay, Falili Famoa, the number 2 offensive tackle in the transfer portal, the number 21 player overall from Washington State. He visited, I believe, on Wednesday. You need to lock this guy down. And the big dogs are getting involved. Michigan's getting involved. Ohio State's getting involved. I don't care. Again, this guy cares about money. Every single transfer cares about money pretty much the most, as they should. All of these guys are very proven players. They're 1 year away from the NFL. They're adults. They care about money. You would too. And I know some people are going to complain that NIL is ruining the sport, this, that, and the third. You may think that it doesn't matter. The truth is you got to adjust. Nebraska has to adjust. If they don't prioritize NIL, they will fail, and they won't get good players. That's just the truth. Okay? If you want to get good players, you got to have a good NIL. Our NIL is good. It's not great. We've already talked about this. You need to pony up and get a guy like this because this is an instant left tackle who would start and protect Dylan Raiola's blind side. Anyways, that's my rant there. Obviously, AJ Penn is another guy you got to get here. This is an edge rusher, really athletic. He's pretty much a jack. If you could get him, you need a jack. You lose MJ Sherman, you lose Prince Wildman Mielon. You need a starting jack. This could be that guy. Get 6'2", 240. Got to get him 12 sacks last year for Rhode Island. And then one more name, Chris Murray on a visit right now, just to add another body to that defensive line room. So overall, those are the guys you need to lock down. All the other guys who we've talked about have already committed elsewhere. So, listen, it's only stage one. I'm not freaking out. Some people are. But at the end of the day, you got to start being aggressive, offering linebackers, offering defensive backs, guys we have not talked about yet. Get them on visits and be aggressive. Pony up with your NIL, man, because NIL is the most important thing in the transfer portal. Okay, NIL is important in high school recruiting, but not to this level. In the transfer portal, they only care about money. They really only care about money, and as they should. They're adults, okay, and they're playing good football, and they deserve to get paid for it, and they're 1 year away from the NFL anyways. So, listen, you got to pony up your NIL, but I am a little bit concerned about our lack of linebackers, our lack of defensive backs coming on visits, because in my opinion, those are the two biggest needs, and you got to get some offensive linemen for Dylan. But that's really our next step. Got to go after some new guys there because we missed out on some big names, unfortunately. So, listen, it's only stage one. We got a lot more transfer portal. Again, we have a lot. We pretty much have a month more talking about this, talking about some key guys. But I'm not concerned yet, not at all, but we definitely need to start going after some linebackers, defensive backs, offensive linemen. And hey, I want a running back. The staff has not offered a running back. We just lost in Dowdell. We need another running back. We only have 5 right now, so that's a conversation for another day. But that's my video going over the next step for Nebraska. Really no other visitors coming very soon. Again, the team's gone on Monday, so we're not going to even have any visitors pretty much next week. Maybe there might be some, but there's no reason for anybody to visit when the staff's not going to be and the team's not going to be here. So anyways, that's my update talking about the next step for the Huskers. Let me know down below, what position do you want the Huskers to address the most? What player do you want the most in the portal for Nebraska? Hey, if you made this far on the video, make sure to like the like button and subscribe. As always, folks, go Big Red, go Metal Roll, and see you in the next one.